So this is our final block, and obviously, again, not enough time to interact with each of them, but they are all of the fellows are writing what you're seeing presenting. These are coming as chapters that will be part of a book. So you'll have a chance to read that book. And of course, if anyone wants to follow up with the fellows, you're welcome to do so. And you can reach out to any of us at the school if you want to figure out how to get in touch. I'll just ask maybe Kathy and to put our emails in the chat. So our first presenter today is Elzabi. Elzabi, did you want to go ahead? You're the first presenter in this block, so.
Thank you, Dr. Lynn. Right, so I'm Elsbie Oukamp. I'm the CEO of National Youth Development Outreach. In short, it's called WIDO in Pretoria, South Africa. And I'm speaking about formalization of the organization processes through policies and procedures. Let's see if it's moving. Right, so the outline of my presentation is the organizational overview, the problem, my response, and the result, and then recommendations. WIDO is a service provider on behalf of government in a small community called Eersterus, a township next to Pretoria, one of the big capital cities in South Africa. During the 1980s, there were a lot of gangsterism and violence in this community, and our founder, Mr. Billy Paulson, is a well-known musician, and he lived in the community and decided with friends to start a coffee shop or a coffee bar on a Friday evening, 9 o'clock, with young people to play music and do performing arts in order to keep them away from gangster activities and provide a safe space to build diligent, responsible citizens. And these programs were so successful that many government organizations wanted to partner with us, and they funded many projects. And this is how WIDO started to engage into the child justice system, as well as the youth development in unemployment, and our main funder become the government. So my statement is many have them and fewer use them effectively. This is policies and procedures that you will find on bookshelves and in storerooms. My journey started long before I started with WIDO. I'm a social worker for the past 26 years, and from the start, I was confronted with these policies and procedures and even program manuals that was founded on bookshelves and in storerooms, and nobody was using them. And when you ask them for staff and management, what is these policies and procedures about, they couldn't really answer you. They couldn't even answer me why you need to complete an intake form, or why it is designed in the way that they design it. So this became a thread throughout my journey in the NGO sector. And when I then started as the new CEO of this organization 4 years ago, I realized that when they asked me to start my own, or to write my own job description and contract, I realized that this is not the first time that this is happening. So I was amused but not shocked, because by then I already know that the organization was depending on word of mouth contributions and delivering what happens in the organization. So when I ask them things, they will say that is the way that we are doing it in WIDO. So I was, for the first 4 months, just answered in that manner. So the perception in NGOs in South Africa is that there are functional policies and procedures. You will find it in practice, But even in a report that was conducted by the National Development Agency, they said 80% of organizations showed that they do have policies and procedures, but in practice, I differ from them. They are there, but they are not used fully. So in our case, policies and procedures is very important for us to be accredited and get funding from government because of our programs that we are delivering. The balancing act is when government is funding you and they are telling you how you must write your policies and procedures, you lose a bit of who you are and what you are as an NGO. So your core values, your core vision and mission can go away. Like our vision and mission is actually looking after youth in the community, and we became a crime prevention organization. Further, for me, one of the most important things is that this is a progressive process. It's never finished. Although my current documents are there and they're on the bookshelf, I must monitor them, I must use them daily, and I must make sure that they are managed by the people that need to manage them. So because this is a long process for me, a 20-year process of seeing these documentations and what happened to them, I started to think I was trained as a supervisor, and this model of how the levels of relationship in supervision worked for me for a framework that I analyze the policies and procedures within an organization to see how the individual system fits on to the organizational system and also the community system. And if these things, these three area systems are in place, then you create functional policies and procedures, and it guides you. Even myself will be in the individual staff member system because I'm coming from home. I have a specific agenda when I go to the office. That's not always just according to the organization. And as a supervisor or a manager, you have to use your functional policies and procedures to balance all the expectations of staff. Sorry. So what we did in addressing the problem that we were confronted with in WIDO is we used the board and staff members' expertise and passions to complete 41 new policies and procedures and many other forms that will help and support the organization and the staff to complete their work. We saved money by doing that in-house. We didn't want to pay someone else because we wanted the funding to go towards creating a better program and put that in place. We also created or adapted a target implementing management tool where we are gathering statistics on a weekly basis to see how programs are implemented, how many people are reached, and that are documented, and it helps us to leverage and communicate with our communities and also other funders. The challenge that we were exposed to was the changing the culture within the organization and keep the staff part of the process because this was not so important to them. So the first result that I can say after implementing this for 3 years now is that the staff's behavior and attitude changed. At the beginning, the staff were very close and isolated. They didn't want us to be part of their processes. It was hard to find out what they are doing on a daily basis and how they were conducting the programs that we implement in the communities. After all the training that we gave to them in the forms of our policies and procedures, implementing the tool, we could clarify some roles and functions. We also helped them to understand that when they deliver a service, they must deliver it in a way that it's ethical, professional, and also serves the client to the best of their abilities. And this made a very motivated team at this stage, and they really are getting out there in the community and serving the community with pride. And that you can see in the next result that we saw is improving the number of beneficiaries that we reach in 2017, when I started there, the number of beneficiaries they reached was 6,900. With all the efforts that we put in, they actually, in 2019, we reached 29,300 beneficiaries. And it was accountable. We could see exactly what they delivered, when they delivered it, and there were processes and procedures in place to make sure that the service delivery is also up to standard and not only just a number. And because we have all these systems, it's easier to see which people are what age, and also males and females, and that informs us a lot in our service delivery and applying for funding.
Elizabeth, you've got about.
So the final result that we did come along was the readiness to show donors that what we are doing, because still we are a subcontractor of government, and they really imposed a lot of pressure on us to reform to their strategies. So now we can open up the conversation, get new funding. We can, with the data that we collected, we can really communicate to funders what we are doing. So my recommendation after implementing the process, the functional policies and procedure framework, is that in updating and making sure your policies is in place, you will see the results and the functioning of your organization will be better. The boundaries within the framework helps the staff to be independent, and they can also work within a framework and know exactly what the organization is about. We can reclaim our position as an NGO and stay true to our core values and vision. And then lastly, one of my recommendations after I did a literature study on my framework is there's a lot of models and literature out there. So when you are embarking on this process, please be informed by these models and literature and shape your organization to what you want it to be.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. So next we have Paul. Great, Paul. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Paul Ekagbo, the Executive Director, Youth Dream Center, Sierra Leone. My presentation is we look at organizational overview, organizational challenge, then leading the change, and what lessons learned from leading the change. The organization was founded in 2007 with the concept of voluntarism and free service delivery to promote non-formal education among marginalized, dropout youth, women and children, and also those who never had opportunity to access formal education. It's like giving them a second chance to access education and also gain skills. Among the key areas of our intervention are technical vocational skills training, catering, soap making, computer skills, camera handling and filmmaking, numeracy literacy. And we set this model and also advocate to government, for government to provide this for the marginalized youth. And we are currently operating in 3 districts in our country. And as an organization, I'm a founding member. The organization was established in 2007, and I'm part of it. In 2008, I was put in charge of coordinating the volunteers. 2009, I was made the executive director of the organization. But assuming the responsibility from coordinator of the organization and even the executive director, I assume the office as with no formal procedures, policies to carry on activities, to manage the human resource we had by then. And this really posed a challenge for me as the volunteer coordinator then and the executive director to manage the volunteers. And it also created dissatisfaction, confrontations towards myself and the founder, having proposed that we need to formalize the way we should manage the volunteers and our activities. And most of the volunteers were resistant towards that suggestion. And they see it that it's not necessary, it's not relevant, and why they should be managed and put under processes and procedures while they are giving their services free of cost. Little did they know that it's in any situation or in any institution, it is imperative to have written processes and procedures to guide every one of us how we should behave and how we should go about doing the activities we should do. But as the executive director by then, I was able to facilitate the process so that we are able to have a formalized volunteer management and motivation program within the organization. So I have to facilitate a participatory approach. How? By inviting volunteers in a meeting, in a planning meeting, because you know, for us to take ownership, not only them to see that the initiative is mine and I want to impose, using a consultative approach, using a participatory approach, so that at the end of the day, the program, the policy is ours, it's not mine. And everybody can understand what it is in the volunteer management and motivation program. So we did a co-design workshop wherein I presented the ideas on how to manage and also motivate volunteers. And they made their input. With their input were taken into consideration. And again, a second workshop to validate what their inputs were. If really the program captured what they want to see the program look like, the volunteer management and motivation program look like. And in that process, there was also a challenge, but some could not agree on one volunteer stipend, volunteer recruitment, and also how they should be managed. So we gave them another opportunity to go back and inquire with other institutions on how to manage volunteers. But on the whole, we are able to establish an effective volunteer management and motivation. In the aspect of volunteer management, in volunteer motivation, the incentives were volunteer human capital development. The human capital development has to do with education support, wherein we are able to support these volunteers. Most of them were secondary school, senior secondary school leavers. So we're able to support their education to tertiary and colleges. That one served as a motivation that all of them were pleased with. Also, performance award of certificates and in our annual meetings to motivate those who really perform well, who were able to do the needful things, and also to inspire those who should do better to continue to contribute to the organization. And another thing is building their capacity to ensure that their assignment given to them, they are able to carry it effectively and efficiently. And of course, stipend was also allocated to them to handle transport and communication while they are implementing our activities. The aspect of management, we ensured that in our recruitment strategies, after recruiting them, we signed contracts agreement with them, and the contract spelled out clearly what is expected of them and what is expected of the organization. And then we gave them orientation about what is it that is expected of them and what the culture of the organization is and what our partners, what our programs are. And also they were put under a volunteer who can also supervise their activities to ensure that they are able to carry out their daily activities. And weekly and monthly meetings are held in order to reflect on what all of them are doing and how their services is really contributing to the progress of the organization, also meeting our beneficiaries. Description of roles and responsibility. Of course, participation in our governance. We have representatives in our governing board of directors as volunteers representing their colleagues in decision-making processes, bringing what is affecting their colleagues to the board in terms of decision-making, and also taking what is happening in the board and the organization as a whole to their colleagues. This is a way of also ensuring that they participate in decision-making process. And on the whole, the organization was able to learn that the absence of a formalized process and procedure creates chaos in managing human resource, not only volunteers, but human resource as a whole. And also, when there are clearly written volunteer motivation and management program, and they should not be only written, but communicated to those who is going to affect, it's going to create a conducive environment where everyone feels safe and wants to be a part. And when it is well managed, it increases performance. And also, what we as CSO leaders should take note of is that change does not come in a day time. It's a gradual process, and therefore, you need to be courageous and perseverance, then you get that change. And we are facing in a global world wherein there is shrinking funding, and also we are affected every day by lack of resources. But volunteers are a valuable asset that we as CSO leaders can make use of, which can be the new normal for CSOs in Africa. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Wonderful, Paul. That was perfect timing. And so again, just encouraging folks to put their comments in the chat. And next up is Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lenny. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this great opportunity for us, for the leaders to present their experiences. My name is Catherine Udaychuku. I am the immediate outgone coordinator of the Rose of Sharon Foundation. I'm here to share my leadership experience in what I titled Co-Production as a Model for Self-Empowerment of Vulnerable Women. Okay. Yes, this is about a case of a well-funded microcredit program of the foundation that failed to meet program objective because, number one, the foundation designed and implemented the scheme without involving the widows who are the service recipients. Number two, we used an intensive and aggressive debt recovery model through debt recovery officer. And then number three, we failed to identify and address areas that these women needed support to run their businesses. And also, we failed to recognize the fact that these are widows who are going through the transition period of widowhood. And then in doing this, or failing to do that, we saw that handling service beneficiaries at target of intervention resulted to, number one, program failure. Number 2, the beneficiaries were dissatisfied. Number 3, we witnessed mismanagement and waste of project funds. Number 4, we saw unfulfilled organizations' missions, and then the staff community, we are demotivated. So I want to emphasize that isolation of service recipients in program planning and commissioning is not only short-sighted, but also is detrimental to the end result of nonprofit missions. We got to a point where the foundation wanted to redesign the program, having experienced a failed program. In our case, funding was never the issue, but we wanted this program to work. We wanted to fulfill the promises we have made to widows and their children. So this brought about the introduction of co-production model to implement the microcredit scheme. Before we go into the details of how that was done and what brought about the great success that we saw with the redesign program, I want us to quickly look at scholars' perspective. What is co-production? Co-production, in a general term, is the term used to describe efforts to engage beneficiaries as partners in service process as a means of building collaborations among beneficiaries to solve shared problems and also improve their psychosocial well-being. According to Osborne, co-production as a service process is seen as a service process shaped primarily by the expectations of the service recipients, their active or passive role in service delivery, and their subsequent experience of the process. Why, from Austin's point of view, co-production is the process through which inputs used to produce a good or service are contributed by service recipients. Now, let's go to some of the steps, in what I called factors that supported the greater co-production experience with the Rose of Sharon Foundation. It was a gradual process, and we initiated different steps that made it work. The first step we took was to identify our key stakeholders. We needed to know who are the people that we need to work out this co-production model with for us to see success. And then we identified the beneficiaries who are widows. We acknowledge the fact that the staff community is there. And then also we saw the need to work with the local village leaders. Step 2, having identified who these key stakeholders were, we wanted to know what role will each stakeholder play. So we identified their roles. We find out what strength do they have? What are the weaknesses, that these people have? Having done that, we went to step 3. We needed to build capacity in the areas where we saw weaknesses. We needed to bridge the gap to make sure that everybody's participation will contribute to the overall success of the program. We started with the beneficiaries, and then we also build the capacities for the staff community in the areas where we identify weaknesses. Same was also done with the local village leaders. And then number 4, we needed to set up the self-help group model to implement the co-production experience. And then here, I want to quickly look at some of the weaknesses, strengths, and the role played by different stakeholders. Let's start with the beneficiaries. For the beneficiaries, of course, we know that these are young widows. And let me also emphasize that the foundation has a criteria for picking up our widows. We understand in our society that different categories of widows. We have rich widows, we have very poor ones. So our focus was actually on the poor ones who most times they are illiterate. So we saw these beneficiaries. Some of the weaknesses we saw is the lack of basic business management skills. They couldn't manage the initial loan. Some of them collected the loan. They would rather use it to buy, maybe change them, upgrade their mobile phones, use it to do burial or other non-profitable ventures. So, and then we saw that these people were going through a lot of emotional, psychological challenges, depressions, and then stepping into the space of breadwinner overnight, So all of this really hampered the much they could do with the money they collected. And then we saw the strength they exhibited, the fact that, these widows, they wanted to succeed by all means. So they were resilient. They wanted to confront poverty. And then we also saw that they were willing to learn whatever thing that we want them to learn in order to make it work for their benefit. And then when it comes to some of the roles they played, the foundation shared decision-making and service management roles with them. For example, during the period of brainstorming, they contributed immensely a lot of ideas on how to redesign the program for their benefits. And then in loan recovery or debt recovery, they participated as well through the self-help group, because the self-help group was set up in such a way that if one member of the group defaults, it is assumed that the whole group, have defaulted. And as such, nobody wanted to be a bad egg among others. So they worked together to ensure timely repayments of their loan. And then for the staff community, we saw initial resistance to change. We saw ego playing out among them. Also, the bureaucracy of staffing structure that we had also posed some limitations. And then for the staff strength, we saw them wanting to keep their job. So they were willing to cooperate. And then they were interested also to see that the organization succeed and the beneficiaries also are satisfied. And then in the role the staff community played, they co-labored with the widows to set up the self-help group, the operating principle, teaching them basic bookkeeping, record bookkeeping, and all that. They also coordinated meetings with the local village leaders at the initial stage. And then for the local village leaders, initially when we approached the communities, they acted as gatekeepers. They wanted some honorarium, and then of course we need to have to cooperate because we had wanted the program to succeed by all means. And then we also saw that these leaders had a lot of influence over their communities or constituencies. So we saw that as a strength that we need to work on. Of course, they also desire the financial empowerment of all their subjects, which include the widows. For some of the functions that they actually played an oversight some functions, monitoring the activities of groups under their constituency, and also ensuring timely repayment of loan. And also they got involved in dispute resolution among their members. So I can confidently say that because of co-production, the beneficiaries maintained regularities in savings and participated more in diversifying their business capitals into more income generating avenues.
Catherine, you have about a minute, a little over a minute left.
All right, thank you. And then we saw the economic well-being being improved, which boosted their self-esteem and elevated their social status. For the organization couldn't have been more fulfilled, seeing the success of the program. And then for the staff community as well, the staff were very happy seeing the social and personal progress of the widows being improved. Here I have few lessons and then recommendation. Number one is this: do not jump into co-production. You have to prepare the organization for the task, prepare the staff community, don't dump ideas or change on them. For the beneficiaries, ensure that you also build their capacity to cooperate with you, and then remove all boundaries. Whatever is perceived to have the capacity of stopping the program, we'll have to identify it like we did with the local village leaders, and also prepare the beneficiaries for peer support network. This is very essential because the widows on their own, everybody was feeling that, oh, my case is worse. But by the time we network them together, they started hearing stories from their peers. They understand, oh, this is a common problem among us. And that really brought them together to decide to fight one common enemy, which is poverty. Thank you. This is the pictorial some of the
Thank you so much.
activities I went on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Okay, well, so we not certainly not least, but last, we have Awal, who's going to talk to us. And you'll notice, I hope everyone's noticing common themes and issues across the presentations. I mean, the amount of experience is just stunning. So Awal, wonderful. You are on. We can't hear you though, if you're speaking.
Good evening, good afternoon to all of you. Yes, my topic is gender activism, developing young female leaders in Ghana. The good thing is that two of my colleagues have already discussed gender equality issues. And so it serves as basis for me to continue. Well, what is the problem? Why should we be discussing gender activism, or should we be focusing on developing young female leaders in Ghana? Most of you, I know, are familiar with international conventions like CEDAW 1979, that's Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination. You are aware of the Millennium Development Goals, which captured gender equality, Sustainable Development Goals, which has gender equality. It tells us that this is a global issue and we need to work towards addressing it. The problem in Ghana, what is it? We have social norms are still not favorable to women and girls. We have low representation of women in decision-making. We have a lack of gender-friendly leadership structures in schools. When we say low representation of women in decision-making, we have three arms of government, all are headed by men. They are deputies, men. If you come to the legislature, we have about 14.6% being female. You go to local government, we have about 256 district assemblies in Ghana. And in all, we have less than 13% of total membership of this assembly being elected assembly women. So we have a situation. The low representation is clear. The social norms, we're still talking about giving girls out for marriages at early stages. We're talking about having women voices reduced and not giving them the desired space to speak out and to be part of decision making. And look at gender-friendly leadership structures. We're talking about most of our high schools and tertiary institutions. The governance structures in the schools are designed to always allow males to lead the students. So students grow up with a perception that, well, only men are supposed to lead. And also we think that this particular thinking is not right, and we need to find a way of getting the girls, getting the teachers and other stakeholders to have a change of mindset. Imbalances in roles, that's gender stereotyping, is still high in most areas. We have, oh, this is for women, and those are not good for us. We have few gender-focused CSOs. We don't have many NGOs focusing on gender. And the few we have, you find weak capacity, the voices are not as loud as they should be. So in all this, I think that there must be some lessons. So from our part, I have these lessons to share. Having deliberate policies on gender equalities in place can't address gender equality issues. So we need to have deliberate gender policies. For example, affirmative action deals passed to laws. And in the development process, we must have these gender-focused groups actively involved and other stakeholders. Relevant actors should be aware of policies at all levels so that we are able to address disconnect between policies and practice. When the actors are not well involved, then you find them not aware of what is involved or contained in our laws. Building movement of girls and women to be empowered for leadership is one lesson from experience, though close to 20 years experience working in an organization that is focused on women and young people. Well, this context that I've just talked about is found in this country, Ghana, where we have close to 30 million people located in West Africa. In fact, we pride ourselves of being one of the first countries to attain independence in the sub-Saharan African region. Unfortunately, Interparliamentary Union has ranked Ghana 147th with 14.6% women representation in our parliament. This is not good for a country that is boasting being the beacon of democracy in Africa. NOSAC was established in 2002. Our vision is having a healthy and empowered society where everyone enjoys their rights and live a life of dignity. Because we have some strategies that we use, we christen it as REBEC, and as we have evidence gathering and advocacy, creating enabling environment for girls and women, building capacity of girls and women, creating learning and reflection platform, then strengthening agency of women and young people. These are our key strategies as an institution. So working with women and young people are developed under these broad strategies, with some program areas as social protection, quality education, health, economic, and then safe communities. As an organization, we have achieved a lot in this particular area. We have contributed greatly in getting girls from senior high schools and tertiary to contest positions at the highest level, previously reserved for boys and young men. So we have been able to break through a number of areas and have about 4 girls being elected as senior prefects. We have one from Cherpeni and then Zabzogo. These are some districts in the northern part of Ghana. Again, we have also contributed in increasing female representation at the local level from 9.3% after the 2010 district level elections to 11.4% at the end of the 2015 district level elections. We have also created about 9 safe spaces platforms for girls, which now host about 28,000 young girls working together and then building solidarity and acting together. We've also been involved in gathering evidence and letting Ghanaians and the public know the state of women representation at all levels in the country. What worked? We believe our strategy of mobilizing, empowering, and taking action is workable, and it has really impacted. We've been able to mobilize girls into and created safe platforms for them. We have introduced training programs that's building capacities on themes like human rights, social activism. We have introduced young female media advocacy program, and also reducing workload or unpaid care work. And it's one area that activists need to know. To promote women's participation in decision-making, we have to also consider how to reduce workload on young people, especially young women. They are overburdened in most cases. Yeah. Now, recommendations. Having gathered all this experience and done this for close to 20 years, I recommend that to develop a successful program in developing young female leaders, we must focus on addressing a disconnect between policy and practice. What are the policies saying on what is happening on the ground? For example, in Ghana, we say marriage must not take place for couples or two people below 18 years. You go to the community level, they are happy marrying out 15 years, 16 years, 14 years girls. So what is being done at the community level is actually different from what the law or the laws are saying. So we need to focus on this particular area. Again, affirmative action. We need to find a way of getting our government to have affirmative actions that will enable CSOs and other actors to track government progress when it comes to getting women into key decision-making processes.
Well, you have about a minute left.
Okay, thank you. Also, creating safe spaces for girls and young women at local, subnational, and national level is very important. An example is our Young Female Parliament, the Adolescent Girls and Young Women Movement. These are platforms that we have created for girls to interact. And I think we should consider that when we are developing initiatives. Also, social norms. We need to attack this particular one. Social norms, changing them can be a gradual process, and we need to have patience. We need to develop innovative interventions to address these particular areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Awal. So we have a set of presenters. We had Elzeby talk about policies, and I think I saw a question in the chat, actually, maybe from Ronnie. We had Paul talk about the formalization of the volunteer program, Catherine co-production, and Awal about his work around gender rights for young women. And we also didn't, just wanted to recognize that Keenan, who also talked about transitioning his organization and putting in place a formal governing board to ensure accountability to the community. In our last block, we ran out of time and didn't get a chance to ask him questions about his presentation. So